Paul Heyman has just made his return to SmackDown, and his return has flipped everything on its head. So we'll see what's new with Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and now CM Punk. The November 22nd edition of SmackDown found the OG Bloodline once again panicking, as their search for the 5th War Games member continued to fail and go off the rails. The group suggested another attempt at recruiting Seth Rollins to help them cancel out Bronson Reed, but Roman was sick of hearing Seth's name by this point and turned the idea down. Roman suggested that the 4 of them are more than enough for the match, and how they'll step into War Games with a big disadvantage and still get the job done. Then in the main event segment of the night, Solo Sikoa made Roman a pretty insane offer. Solo said that if Roman surrendered, both versions of the Bloodline could be morphed together and continue to run the company for years to come. But obviously, Roman was having no part of that and refused the offer. And right as another brawl is about to break out, Paul Heyman makes his long-awaited return to get in the way of both sides of the Bloodline. It was Paul Heyman's first televised appearance since he was brutally taken out several months ago by Solo Sikoa in Madison Square Garden. And just like Paul Heyman predicted himself, Heyman's return was connected with a very impactful direction for the story. The OG Bloodline was struggling for weeks to find a 5th member, so Heyman returns and instantly has a solution for them with CM Punk. This is also a big return for CM Punk himself. He's been away since the Raw following his Hell in a Cell match with Drew McIntyre. CM Punk joined the OG Bloodline in the ring and helped them fight off Solo's gang. And after getting the beatdown and defeated for weeks in these mini brawls, the OG Bloodline finally won a brawl here against Solo Sikoa, and it was largely thanks to Paul Heyman and CM Punk's help. One of the final shots for SmackDown included Roman Reigns and CM Punk staring each other down, while Paul Heyman stood on the ring apron, right in the middle of them. So even that camera shot right there is so significant because that one shot could be some heavy foreshadowing and a big hint for what's to come in this story. Paul Heyman could figuratively find himself standing right in between CM Punk and Roman Reigns in the future, as they both fight for him and his full attention. Roman holds his wise men in very high regards, so you just know he would not be happy with the idea of basically needing to share Paul Heyman with CM Punk. He's not going to like that. Same thing applies for CM Punk. Paul Heyman was managing CM Punk in the WWE, while Roman was still in the Shield. So Punk is probably feeling like he has the longer and richer personal history with Paul Heyman. So it could boil up into a situation where both men are fighting with each other over Paul Heyman. WWE did this story a few years back in 2021 when Brock Lesnar returned, and Brock's history with Heyman was really brought to the forefront of the story. Roman started to doubt Paul Heyman and was so paranoid of a betrayal from Heyman due to the rich history he had with Brock Lesnar. And once Roman found a little bit of solid proof that Heyman and Brock were in communication with each other, Roman fired Heyman and beat him down in the ring. So we've seen how messy a fight over Paul Heyman got a few years ago, and this one has the potential to get just as messy. Another thing fans were freaking out over was Paul Heyman's attire. Paul Heyman always has a full suit on for a majority of his televised appearances, but his return attire was very different from his usual attire, and fans are wondering if that's a story hint as well. Paul Heyman made his return in a black suit jacket with a red handkerchief and a red t-shirt underneath. And oddly enough, this is the same exact way Solo Sikoa often dresses when he comes up for a promo segment. Solo always has the black jacket, red handkerchief, and a red shirt underneath. So fans are wondering if this was a potential subtle betrayal hint from Paul Heyman to Roman Reigns right there. Paul Heyman switches his whole attire, and coincidentally enough, it matches Solo Sikoa's wardrobe. Is there more to that? Is this a sign? Lots of fans are mixed on Punk's inclusion in the War Games match. Some think it's a perfect addition, while other fans think it does not make sense. And actually, CM Punk being added to the match makes a whole lot more sense than Seth Rollins joining the match. Seth basically swore on everything he loves that he'll never team up with Roman Reigns again, and after hearing how passionate he sounded when he said that, we mentioned how it'll be a terrible look for Seth if he went back on his word and teamed up with Roman after all of that. So to Seth's credit, he stood his ground and refused to run back to Roman the same way the OG members did. Gotta give Seth credit for that. And Punk being added to the match will also do wonders for Punk and Seth's upcoming feud as well. Not only does Seth have a lot of pre-existing issues with CM Punk, but now Punk went and signed up to help his other arch nemesis, Roman Reigns, with the War Games match. This will only anger Seth even more with Punk, so that's perfect. Punk's addition to the match makes sense because he owed Heyman a favor and would do anything for him. So even though Punk may not be the biggest Roman Reigns fan, he'll do the job because it was Heyman who asked. And we can't forget that Roman Reigns has already done a favor for Paul Heyman in months past for when it came to CM Punk. Remember that Paul Heyman did make a personal request to Roman after Punk returned to WWE in 2023 that no one from the Bloodline should put a hand on Punk because of how special he was to Heyman. And to Roman's credit, he granted that request for Paul Heyman. No one from the Bloodline was allowed to put their hands on Punk while Roman was in control. And that was the special request from Paul Heyman. So in terms of favors, Roman Reigns and CM Punk have now done some pretty big ones for Paul Heyman. Roman respected that CM Punk was special to Heyman and gave him his word that the Bloodline would never attack him for any reason. And now, when the timer was really running out for the OG Bloodline to find someone to be their fifth man, CM Punk accepted the offer only because he looks at the situation as doing it for Paul Heyman, not for Roman Reigns. So after doing these big favors for Paul Heyman, CM Punk and Roman Reigns now find themselves in the same ring, in the same match, with each other for the first time in over a decade. And it makes sense for CM Punk to agree to help Roman and the OG Bloodline because Punk never felt the wrath of the original Bloodline. CM Punk was out of the business towards the start of Roman's Tribal Chief run, and he was in AEW during the prime days of the original Bloodline. So CM Punk has a pretty clean slate with the original Bloodline, and they never did anything wrong to him. He was never a victim of their attacks. So it makes more sense for Punk to be the fifth man, rather than someone like Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, or anyone else like that. A big theory fans are holding on to right now is the idea of Paul Heyman betraying Roman Reigns. Roman completely abandoned Paul Heyman with zero communication from April all the way to basically now in November. So is Paul Heyman gonna really let Roman Reigns off that easy for that long abandonment and just go back to being normal? Or will Paul Heyman end up holding Roman accountable for how he treated him in 2024 and hit Roman with a big betrayal? And like we mentioned earlier, Roman was very quick to figure out that Paul Heyman was working with Brock Lesnar in 2021, and Roman kicked Paul Heyman out before Heyman even got a chance to properly betray him. So what if things are different this time around and Roman lets his guard down and ends up being brutally betrayed by Paul Heyman when he least expects it? There's just so many ways for this story to go in, and it's going to be exciting to watch. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.